Welcome to the Superposition podcast, a podcast where the stories of members of the security community talk about life in the post-quantum cryptography world. We hit on a range of topics, such as penetration testing, new quantum threats, and emergent quantum encryption standards. We frame these problems through personal stories, and we hope to encourage you to get more involved in this emergent field. This podcast is sponsored by the QuForce, which has the mission to be the world's leading community for post-quantum cryptography and white hat hacking. Join our community today at QuForce.org. That is QuForce.org. Let's get started.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Crothmore.
And I'm Jim Schwabel, and we're here to introduce the Superposition podcast. So we're really excited to be here. We have created this organization called the QuForce that is focused on white hat hacking and post-quantum cryptography. And we're using obviously the superposition idea of being in two places at one time and being entangled. We're going to have this theme throughout our podcast, our guests, and ultimately our cryptography discussions on and off many times over. So very excited to be here. This is our first episode, and we're hoping to do as many episodes in this series, interviewing guests across a wide range of backgrounds. We're going to start with just our story and Rebecca and my story, and why we're here, what our mission is, and how you can be involved in the QuForce. So that being said, I'd love to start out with you, Rebecca. You know, what brought you here? Like, why are you in this QuForce community? What interests you in post-quantum cryptography? Like, what do you see are the main problems? Just love to hear your background.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. So my background kind of is unconventional for getting into the cybersecurity space. I started out wanting to be a doctor, of course, and then ended up at Stanford, and there's such a pull towards technology there, and it was kind of the exciting thing to do. Not to mention I was really terrible at chemistry and failed my first chemistry class. So I got into more of the AI side, and that's pretty much what I was doing for, through college, and then for several years after, doing projects in ML and kind of advanced.
So it was AI before AI was hot, it seems.
It was AI before AI was hot. Yeah, it's funny. I was giving a talk yesterday, and it was a talk at a conference for data science, and they were talking about how in 2012, deep learning was thought to be just not even an interesting thing to do, and then all of a sudden, a paper was published, and of course, deep learning today is a huge thing, and really that wasn't that long ago. But it just goes to show how technology pops up and can be enabled all of a sudden, and that also brings us to quantum computing and post-quantum cybersecurity, which is the way that I came from the AI side to this space is in part because I was really passionate about AI and AI and ethics, and I was starting to hit walls with computing power and wanting to be able to do more and do the stuff that we can do in theory, but are limited in terms of the hardware that we have access to. And my co-founders, three guys, Dave, Skip, and Costa, who I'm sure you'll meet at some point along this podcast journey, they came to me and brought the idea of quantum computing to me in, I think, 2018. And it was kind of this aha moment, no looking back. We started a company called Quantum Thought in the quantum computing space. And what we really learned on this journey was that cybersecurity is really, quantum computing is looming, and just the biggest immediate use case and threat that it poses is in this cybersecurity world. And no one's really talking about this. And yet it's, it could be now, it could be 2 to 3 years where essentially all of our cryptography, everything that all of our cyber systems are based on, is just going to be completely obsolete, and it's going to be able to be torn through by by quantum computers, and that's that's proven. That's not a theoretical anymore. That's a given.
Well, I
So
mean, with that, you're there. I think there's a lot to unpack. I think this audience, not everyone might have thought about that as deeply. It reminds me of the days when internet port scanners were created, and for the first time, you could look at open ports and hacking computers on the internet in the 80s and 90s, and realizing there are vulnerabilities on the internet, and you can get into like networks, and you can like exfiltrate information. I feel like we're at this critical point in history where we are for the first time using quantum computers for certain things in security that are kind of like whenever the first port scanner was made, you go to the Department of Energy. One of my good mentors, Chris Klaus, created an internet security system a while back and created one of the first port scanners, open sourced it, and saw all these vulnerabilities, and people started caring. Like, do you think we're at that point in history with quantum computing and encryption and all the things that you're interested in?
I definitely think so. I think that's a really good parallel. Most people I talk to still, and even I live in a bubble, right? I live in Silicon Valley where people know about this stuff. But most people I talk to, there's still this idea that quantum computing is sci-fi, and it's not, which is pretty cool. It's definitely at the early days, and there's only certain very basic things we can do with them, but they're scaling up quickly, and it's just very exciting to be involved in this space. And along with that, I mean, you need to kind of clear a couple assumption hurdles or levels of knowledge to be aware of this security threat. And the first one is quantum computers exist, right? There's the foundation. Second one is that they're accelerating. 3, there's this famous algorithm called Shor's algorithm that does prime factorization really well, which classical computers can't. And because classical computers really can't, that's why a lot of our public key cryptography is based on that. And so, ergo, we're, everything's kind of in this state of, oh, what do we do now? And so that's what with QSecure, the company that I've co-founded, that's what we're working on. And then with Jim, we started QuForce to bring people into this community to start this conversation. It goes from a government level, private, etc. It's huge. It's this huge revolution that needs to take place, and it's starting. But I think from the community level, also, there's so much potential to drive through white hat hacking, through open source, through engagement, forward movement in it as well.
Yeah, totally. I'm equally as excited here. The how we can impact this community, it's just beginning. This whole area of quantum security and quantum computing in general. I mean, what is it, like only 800 to 1,000 experts or so in this field globally, and even fewer doing companies. Yet the magnitude of the problem is every network, every packet of data online. What got me interested, I'm a non-traditional security person as well. I was involved in a cybersecurity fund a while back, so I saw a lot of companies in cyber. We invested in 11. So we saw a lot of network security companies, port scanners, penetration testers. Saw a lot of angles of new threats. How do you investigate threats? SOC 2 investigations, post-breach, like how do you resolve and remediate those breaches? How do you disclose those breaches? How do you build businesses around those things? This whole area of quantum, post-quantum cryptography makes all these threats that we've never seen before accessible to anyone with powerful enough computers. And it just creates this whole foray of issues, not only from an enterprise level, but personal privacy, and like why we should care about our own privacy. Any packet of encrypted information online. I'm just so fascinated at a philosophical level of the implications of this field. And I think anyone listening can get involved. I think that's what we're trying to say here is you don't need to be on the sidelines. You could be a software engineer, I'm just so passionate and excited to engage you guys. So
yeah, Yeah, and I think both of us coming from those non-traditional backgrounds demonstrates that. And we're starting to build up this really good community of, not just people who are in cybersecurity or people who are in software engineering, but people who are in national security or business leaders or whoever's interested, the people who are helping us with community management, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I should pull up the slide on the stakeholders, but like students, CISOs, software engineers, anyone that wants to be involved in the space, especially people that want to make a difference, work on demos, we'll find a place to put you, if you want to be a part of this, either as a ad hoc advisor from a high level advisory position to a standards task force. So we have two task forces right now. One's an education task force where we're trying to message these threats of post-quantum cryptography to the enterprise. And how best do we do that? Through infographics, through website, through videos. This podcast is a part of the education task force, actually. It evolved. There's many other things we're doing. We also have a standards task force. So we're looking to establish post-quantum standards around NIST and other organizations, doing risk management projects for specifically CISOs and like-minded security professionals, thinking about best practices, consortiums and industry consortiums around sharing data and disclosing threats. So we have a lot going on in that. That's led up by Costa, as we'll get to later in the series. Then we have a range of others that are forming around penetration testing and many other areas. And so we'd love to engage you in any one of these task forces. You could lead up a new task force if you want to as a director. We have lots of projects. You could be a fellow and do projects in any of these task forces, or just join our Slack page as a general member. We have lots of events. We just did an event about a few days ago, or actually yesterday, and we had about 550 people sign up. Over 100 actually were at the event physically live. And I think that was a great one where we just educated the community about post-quantum cryptography. And please watch that video. We'll post the link and channel after this to watch later. So lots of stuff going on. I hope to be very active here.
Yeah.
I think is the thesis.
Lots of great stuff. We're really pumped about this community. We already have some really, really amazing, intimidating members who are also very excited and pumped to really drive change in this. And as far as the podcast goes, the purpose here is to do some education around the subject. So especially if you've never heard of it, we'll have another podcast that gives you all the basics of post-quantum cybersecurity, what that means. And then the series will really be a bunch of interviews with leaders in the space, thought leaders, people who are building, people who are impacted by it, et cetera, to give real boots on the ground insights into what's happening in this world of quantum resilient cybersecurity.
Yeah, like these new architectures of quantum resilient architectures and what that means against these threats and how to think about future-proofing packets and information there's going to be lots of great philosophical discussions here and how we can advance this as a community, as a neutral community and group. And I think this is such a huge area, so much to talk about, so many people that we need to engage, from government sector to large companies, enterprises, to even mid-sized companies. So we're very excited, and please get involved. Get engaged. We'd love to have you on this podcast at some point if you're interested to come speak. With us.
We hope you join us. If you're interested, please visit QuForce.org. And you'll find the sign up for the Slack, and feel free to reach out directly. And we're looking forward to engaging.